Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where the topic is Program and Project Financial Management in an Adaptive Project and Portfolio Management World. My name is Doug Welsby, and I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Esterbrooks. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit questions. I'll address these during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I'll be emailing a link to the presentation once it's been posted to our YouTube channel. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks for the introduction, Doug, and welcome everybody. We're excited to bring you this topic today of program and project financial management in an adaptive project portfolio management world. We've done in the past webinars on the program and project financial management topic, but with the shift into more adaptive PPM, and we'll just define that a little bit more, it adds another layer of consideration and sometimes even complexity to deal with. And we're intending to show you some solutions here on how to deal with that in an effective manner. So with that, let's get started. And let's start with some project financial management concepts. When we look at project portfolio management and some of the disciplines that are contained within it, and PPM providing program and project managers with the capabilities needed to manage the time, resources, skills, and notice budgets necessary to accomplish all interrelated tasks. Notice that, and I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but if you look at it in pipeline management, resource management, change control, financial management, risk management, notice the highlighting there that there is a financial dimension to all aspects of that. For example, in pipeline management, as you have intake, there's an estimating and capital investment process and approval that probably needs to take place within your organization. When you manage resources, there's a financial aspect of that, whether it be financial resources or human resources that have rates or costs associated with them. On the change control process, you have to look at the changes and look at the cost considerations or impacts along with other impacts you might have in the proposed changes. In an overall financial management, you have to, understand the value of the project, both from a cost and from a benefit perspective. You have to have financial controls so that you don't blow through the budgets or the funding that you might have. You might use project financial techniques like earned value or other variance analysis type of approaches that you might use to keep those projects on track and make the adjustments that you need. And even on things like risk, when you look at risks that you might face, that if they impact you or if they arise, what would be the potential cost impact of all those things? And so financial management is important through all aspects of what we're doing in project and portfolio management. And from the graphic on the right-hand side, not only does this affect you at the project level, but it can also really affect people that have to manage things at an overall program level or ultimately at an overall portfolio or other organizational breakout type of unit within these types of work. So it is important, and it does permeate through the entire PPM process. So what is project financial cost management? Well, from a traditional perspective, it has always been one of the 10 knowledge areas outlined in the project management body of knowledge from the very beginning. But also has its place in the more agile approaches with things like lean budgeting and things like that. So there is still a financial and budgeting and cost perspective, even in some of the more modern techniques that people are using or approaches. So what we should expect project financial management to deliver is a capability to do planning of the costs, to be able to do estimating of costs on the efforts that we're going to undertake, to be able to determine and agree on a budget, and then ultimately, once we've agreed on that, to control the cost and manage these efforts within those budgets so that we can deliver on that dimension of our projects consistently. So the financial management process is really the process of ultimately estimating the cost initially, developing a project budget, and then controlling spending as we execute on the projects during its active life cycle. So the cost estimation is generally the step where the project manager works with the financial department and other related folks to estimate the cost for all the necessary things needed to deliver successfully on a project. Once that's determined, we have to turn that into some type of budget framework that the project manager and the rest of the organization agrees that this is the budget that we're going to give and how it's going to be funded for this particular project. And then ultimately the spending control mechanisms are in place so that the budget's reviewed, spending is tracked, and the project manager, or the person responsible for the initiative takes control of that spending to ensure that the allocation is optimized, the costs are fully covered, and planned within the execution of the project. So it's a cyclical process of planning, estimating, budgeting, tracking, then where necessary, assessing or reassessing, and then possibly reforecasting and going through that process on an ongoing basis. So from a project financial management approach, there are different approaches that are taken by some, and some take all of these. But more bottom-up financials is really where people are executing on projects. They're allocating people or assigning tasks of defined pieces of work within those projects. And then people are possibly tracking the costs or the spend on those detailed tasks that are in those plans. It could also include task level resource assignments, with those resources having associated rates so that there's labor costs associated with those types of things down at that detailed task level. And then these elements could then roll up to a project level or a program level or portfolio level from that granular detail. The challenge with this approach is that it requires maintenance of data at a very granular level of detail, and people need to do that consistently at that level in order to maintain it from a bottom up. The top-down financial process is really where you do things more from a project level or a program level, and you do the budgeting and tracking at that level, and you use more detailed financial categories of the cost types that you might have in there, categories of labor and materials and software and travel, and then cost types that you might have, like things like budgets and revised forecasts and actuals that you track along the way. And this type of approach gives us the latitude to do more time phase financial values of what we intend to spend over time, or even what the benefits or the revenue we might be looking to expect over time. It's easy to incorporate labor and non-labor costs in this type of model. And a lot of folks will then use a combined approach where they use the more top-down approach very early on in the process as they're proposing or justifying a project in a business case, and then go more bottom-up when people know more and they have a more detailed plan in place. And then we can compare maybe what those early top-down assumptions were with current information. So these are types of financial approaches people take, but not everyone has to do all aspects of this to be successful. So the financial management process, so a complete solution for financial management is that we want to apply a standard, integrated, and logical approach to developing, estimating, selecting, approving, and monitoring these investments. We ultimately would want a single source of the truth, not a set of scattered spreadsheets around the organization, where we can do portfolio planning and budgeting, where we can submit requests and approvals that have a financial component to it, possibly capital budgeting, where we have to actually request and get approved for capital resources, and then get CapEx approval on those things. Be able to do project forecasting and reforecasting where required over the life of a project, and be able to do such forecasting, tracking, and reporting over the life cycle of these projects, programs, and portfolios. Now, in the modern world, the concept of adaptive project and portfolio management is taking hold, and it's layering on another level of considerations that we have in this process. A common term today is organizations are shifting to the left in a way that's meaning they're becoming more agile. In the shift left model, people are doing things more iteratively and sending them and putting deliverables out in more consistent and more frequent timeframes so that value is received sooner and delivered incrementally rather than big bang at the end of a large development effort. These agile approaches are becoming more and more in vogue and taking hold, especially in things like software development and new product development. And organizations and the analysts will tell you that organizations are continuing to shift further and further to the left. Now, this means different methodologies are being used. So Agile is growing. Waterfall, though, is still widely used in more traditional projects. And there's other Agile variants that people are using, or they're using some hybrid methodologies where they're using a combination of Agile and Waterfall. Some people call it Scrum Fall or things like that. And ultimately, a lot of folks use personalized cherry-picked versions of all the above. And what this means is they're using different approaches, and there is, with the easy access to cloud tools these days, a proliferation of execution tools that teams and groups within an organization are using. So the population of different tool sets that are in play to do this is becoming of greater number. On top of that, adaptive PPM really talks about the concept of multiple portfolios. It's not just the traditional project or IT portfolio, for example. Across the enterprise, you may have a project portfolio. There may be a program portfolio. There might be a product portfolio. There could be an application portfolio for IT, and there could be an IT service portfolio. These are just to name some of the things that you have here. So to be able to accommodate a financial model that possibly considers all of these different types, but yet not be beholden to all the different proliferation of execution tools is a powerful thing, so that we can have a single source of truth, a single funnel for the onboarding of work potentially, and one single picture of the financial aspects of this. And the other challenge then is consolidating and translating that information as you roll up through the organization. Even at the project level, you might call things different things. People may have initiatives, or in the more agile word, they may have epics, or they may have projects that they're working in more traditional project modes. And then they may be using different methodologies, more iterative types of agile approaches or more waterfall approaches on some. And then at the bottom, the tools that might be being used might vary depending on the nature and the type of work it is. Now, from a top-down approach, where you fund and track these costs, whether it be at a project level, whether it be at a program level, at a more portfolio level, the idea is that some of that information is going to be entered at certain levels, or some of it may be rolled up from lower levels, and so we can compare and look at things as how they aggregate through. So this consolidation and translation must happen on a consistent basis, and you need to have a tool or a mechanism to do that. Otherwise, you're probably doing manual mashups of data from a variety of spreadsheets and tools, trying to consolidate that into a form and format that turns into meaningful information. We would like this to be a more natural output of the process rather than a data gymnastics exercise. So let's talk about financial management in one plan. That's going to be the focus of our presentation and demonstration today. One plan is a solution that provides both strategic and adaptive PM solutions in the Microsoft cloud, and it really connects that top-down strategy with the bottoms-up execution. This particular graphic uses execution tools that are very Microsoft flavored, but we're not limited to the Microsoft tools on that execution level. The idea is to have them all aggregate and come together at some portfolio level solution, which is one plan. And if we think about the top-down pieces at the portfolio level of this solution, notice that there's portfolio planning and resource planning, and our focus today is going to be to talk about the financial planning of that and how it touches the portfolio planning as well. We can use bottoms-up work management and execution tools to feed in the details, but they can consistently be using the same top-down resource planning, portfolio planning, and financial planning in one plan, regardless of what those bottom-level execution tools might be. And as people make this move to the left, from the right-hand side that you see the more traditional project and portfolio management, and some folks trying to do transformation all the way to the left in a more fully agile portfolio management realm, there's this adaptive piece in the middle where it might be transitionary for some people as they try to get to the far left with the agile pieces, or some it might be a permanent state where they recognize in their type of organization and the work that they do, there will be some agile and there will be some non-agile or more traditional waterfall type efforts continuously through an organization. And if you notice, one plan has mechanisms and tools in place to support wherever you're at on this continuum. So what Paul's going to be showing you today is our financial planner, and he'll be talking about integrating top-down project financials into the portfolio so that we can enable full financial management controls, detailed cost categorization, time phasing of data, et cetera. And I won't steal his thunder, but the idea here is that at this higher level portfolio, which could have execution being done in a variety of execution tools, the financial planning and execution and management pieces can be consistent across all of those work efforts. We also have the ability to add capabilities such as what-if scenario modeling that allows us to make sure that we're honoring and considering the constraints we have from a financial and a budget perspective. It also lets us to be able to track these financials at a variety level of details. It could be at the project level. It could be at the program level. It could be at a value stream or portfolio level. The idea is the solution will allow you to determine what is the best level for you to manage and track these types of information. It'll allow the time phasing of costs for integrated planning and tracking, and allow you to do financial impact and analysis in views that have heat maps and variance analysis and such. And it also allows us to leverage this financial information in project selection and management. So if we want to devise a portfolio that maximizes an organization's benefits within the constraints that we have, we can actually feed an optimization model in here for prioritization. We can honor and make sure that we do the mandatory or pre-approved or regulatory projects. We can model scenarios to determine what the best course of action is to get the best return on our investment or deliver the most value to our customers, both internal and external. And we can also formalize the project approval process by factoring in all these things as we go through the decision-making process. A key point here is that Forrester says that 75% of surveyed customers said they experienced better strategic and organizational alignment once they actually instituted the use of a PPM solution like OnePlan. And then ultimately, reporting and analytics is important to keep our finger on the pulse of how we're doing. The solution we're going to talk to you today, and Paul will show you some today, we have pre-built reports that focus on the financial aspect of things, whether it be high-level trends, more financial details, whether it be program level financials, whether it be project level financials, or portfolio roll-ups of the financial picture that we might want to look at and be able to slice through those or possibly drill down. And so this type of thing should be something that is a natural output of the managing the process rather than you having to build and construct these every reporting cycle. And another key piece here is to just understand that on the financial side of things, especially on the actual side of things, is that folks often want to integrate with their current financial or ERP systems. And OnePlan does provide you the ability to connect to these solutions with productized connectors and allow you to share either in one direction, either way, or in a bi-directional fashion, the relevant data that you'd like to either share with the financial system or from the financial system to get that complete picture that you're looking for. Now, OnePlan, just for your information, we're going to be demonstrating, or Paul's going to be demonstrating this today in the context of using and accessing it via Microsoft Teams. But be aware as we go into this that OnePlan was built in and for the Microsoft Cloud to have a fused user experience in the Microsoft technologies or platforms that you are working in consistently. So for example, Teams we're going to show it to you today, but people in software development that are working in Azure DevOps, OnePlan can be surfaced through there. People that are in SharePoint, it can be surfaced there, or in Power Apps or Dynamics, etc. The idea is just be aware, keep in mind as you see this in Teams, that you have other options on how to surface and consume OnePlan and the capabilities you see here today. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul for the demonstration. I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Good day, everyone. So I'm logged into Teams, and I'm going to walk through a lot of what Jim just laid out for you. I am in my Teams environment. I'm in this particular channel here. You'll see we have OnePlan embedded as one of the tabs within this channel. I'm going to kind of maximize my screen space by doing that just for the purposes of this demo, but we'll reside in Teams the entire time. As I go through this demo, I'm going to show you this using 4 different roles. There'll be the project manager in 2 different places. There'll be a portfolio manager doing some of that what-if modeling and things that Jim was just talking about a minute ago. There'll be a program manager looking at things at the program level, and then there will be finally the executive looking at reports that Jim spoke of just a second ago before we started this demo. So those are the 4 roles as we walk through this. So I'm in OnePlan. Right now, I am looking at one of the various views here, and you can see we have this tree structure. So I have a portfolio. That portfolio, if I open it back up, has a program, and inside that program are a series of epics or projects. Okay, and I have a bunch of these different ones in here. I'm going to use this project in a minute. I'm going to flip my view just for a second. to look at the project financial summary, just so I could see the roll up of that financial data. So now I've flattened it, it's just in projects for now for the purposes of this. And you can see that many of these projects already have budgets, some have forecasts as well, and we can calculate remaining budget, any variances, and so forth. Other financial data that we might want to know. And I can look at that at the portfolio level, the program level, or here at the project level. So just a quick orientation to where we are here. Now when I dive into a project, think of this as the PM, and I've landed myself on the financials tab intentionally, just for the simplicity of this demo. And in here you could see I've got a forecast, but what I actually want to do is go and look at my budget. And I want to make some updates to my budget. So this is that top-down scenario. So I'm going to use that grid here in a minute. But a few things to orient you. We can have different expense types in here. So the most popular would be OPEX, CAPEX, but any other type of categorization or GL code alignment, any of those types of things we can do here as well. That may tie into integration later. We can also change our date range. So I'm just looking at this year for now. This project resides in this year, but I could switch this to quarters or to an annual number and enter data accordingly. So whatever level of granularity that I want to go to, I have some flexibility there. I'm going to stick with month for now. Okay. And what I wanted to do in this budget is recognize that there's some other expenses. I don't know what they are. We don't need that part of it, isn't important, but I'm going to add them to my budget. So I've got $18,000, $14,000 worth of money here, and you'll see that the total budget, if I scroll across, is 402. Okay. That is also shown here in my details page. You will see, oh, sorry, I read the wrong number. So 576, I was missing some information there. Okay, so I have my budget, and that is increased from what it was earlier. I have my forecast, which was on another tab, and some other information. So I could see it here, but then that detail is coming from in here. Okay, yeah, sorry, there's the 576 right there. Okay, so as I added numbers, this increases. So this is my budget. Again, I can enter it at different date ranges, and later we're going to come in and use some of these other tabs, and then we'll do some comparing as a project gets into an execution stage. So back to my portfolio for a minute. Now I want to look at this as a portfolio manager. I've got my portfolio, I've got all these projects and this rich data. So I want to use financial analysis to drive how I select projects. So I have a few different options here. First, I'm going to switch my view again just to give you a bit more context to what kinds of data is here. This is my portfolio view, my prioritization view. You can see we've got prioritization scores. There's that budget information. We've also captured some benefits information and some strategic alignment scoring. I can turn on this column, and now I can start to manually move projects up and down the list to different places in the list to move them up in priority or down in priority if I'd like. Now what I want to do, though, as a portfolio manager is look at this in the context of money. Any of you who may have attended last week's webinar, we looked at this in the context of people. This week, we're going to look at it in money. So here we are. We've set up a budget target for 2020, and we just flattened it. We said we want to spend about $400,000 a month in this particular group of projects. And as you can see, our budget or our plan totals right now are almost 7.3 million. So we're way over budget. So what I want to look at as a portfolio manager, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to say any project on hold or proposed, we're going to take out of this model. Okay. And I just quickly unclick them, and you can see down at the bottom that it is adjusting my list. Now my budget is actually 5.8, and you can see some of these months are starting to get closer. Some are clean, they're good, and I can continue to work through this and say, well, you know what, we're going to have to go a little bit deeper to get to the number we want. We continue to move it down. Maybe we'll take out a couple of others here quickly. Okay. And now I'm really close. I could fiddle with this some more, and when I'm done, I could save that scenario as a scenario that I want to review with management or with the team and say, are we good with this in terms of the timing and in terms of what's cut and what's in? The other option I have before I finalize this is maybe I look at some of these projects. I'm going to bring this one back in for a minute. My budget's going to jump up a little bit. That's okay, because potentially I could look at moving that project out. And now some of it appears into 2021, and it might help relieve some of my early months and the pressure on my budget. And I could move some other things around and see if that improves my scenario, and then save it and say, that's the one I want to review with the team later. I've modeled out a what if that gets us closer to our budget. Maybe we need to go back and look at the target and say, clearly we don't need all that money in the month of January. Can we move it to other months? But still, we're over budget and we still have some work to do there. So different options here that we can use the financial data that we've captured at the project level to now make some decisions over what projects we can fund, which projects we want to green light and go forward with, and their, the impact on the overall budget and spend of the organization. So having done that, I'm going to jump up here and grab a project. Now we've approved our projects. We're moving forward in the story here. And now as a PM, I'm going to capture some actuals, and I'm going to talk through that a bit, and then show you how you can look at those compared to your forecast, compared to your budget, and so forth, and make some decisions in the action side of this, in execution for a PM. So I'm back in this, I'm in another project, I'm back on the financials tab again, and right now I'm looking at actuals, okay? I'm down here on my actual screen. And I've just gotten word of some actuals that have come in. So I incurred an expense, I'm just gonna put it in other for now, in the month of July, and it occurred again in the month of August. We'll figure out later what that is. Maybe we'd want to have a comment column or something of that nature to sort of give an additional explanation. Maybe we also had, we know there was additional software we needed to buy in September. So I've quickly captured that information right here. For capturing actuals, there really are three scenarios. One, you could do what I just did. You can enter in that data manually. The invoice is here on your desk, and you want to be able to track it. Number two, the resource data, you'll notice none of that's been entered yet, is we can pull that from the timesheet system that we have here, or from task updates, or potentially from actuals that were captured in Microsoft Project or elsewhere, and we roll those through, and with a rate in the background attached to that role or to that resource, it can funnel to here as an actual. And third, and that was Jim's slide just a minute ago around integration, it's common that clients will ask us, well, can I get these actuals from our financial system? It is our book of record. What I want my PMs to do is to see the actuals, understand their impact on their budget, revise their forecasts, and make decisions regarding the execution of the project. I don't want them to be entering financial data that's done elsewhere in the proper book of record, and we don't need to. So in those situations, we can leverage the tools we have to go and pull that financial data in and have it appear here so the PM can then act on it. The final point I'll make just here really quickly is you'll notice these columns are grayed out, or they're monitored, because in this project schedule, there isn't expected to be any tasks in those months, so there really shouldn't be actuals in those months. Now what I want to do, just to fully understand this, if I look at actuals compared to budget, and now you'll see I have some reds coming into view. My actuals for contracts in June was 5,000. I had budgeted 3. Now I'm under here. The combination's nice, so I'm good on the total. But just there's something to watch for in terms of when those spends occurred. And obviously back in June, I might want to have monitored that quite closely. Down here, software is 10 over my budget in that month, and I didn't even plan for anything here. So those are definite issues with the budget. And these two items either occurred early because they were in the budget later, or there's something different, and I better be aware of that and I'm on top of it. So as a PM, I have my budget. I can do forecasts and compare to those as well as this budget evolves rather over time. And I have my actuals, either a combination of the capture of resource, time, and effort, or just typing the data in, or a pull from financial data from a financial system, or some combination of those levers to get this view that's actionable for me as a PM. The next thing I want to show, so I'll go back here and I'm going to grab a different view, is I'm going to go look at my program summary. Now I have a list of programs. One of them is that social networking project that I had in here earlier. And I simply want to show as a program manager a couple of bits of data here. I'm going to jump over to the financials. So here, the program said our total is 700,000, and they've moved that out over the life of the program, which is obviously longer than that year. And that's what the expected spend is. That's the planned spend for that. Now, if I go and look at it here, what I could see is that these are the total, the projects that make that up and what their budgets are. And I could see that in my program budget is 700. My projects right now, their budget is 906. They're forecasting below that. That might be good news. So I do have an allocation in a negative, meaning if everything comes through to what each of those project budgets are, I will blow the program budget, and I should be very aware of that and perhaps make some decisions. Yes, the forecast is good right now, but the forecast may not be final. It may not account for everything. There's clearly a gap there that I'm going to want to monitor because the program budget is below what the allocation is in those different projects. So as a program manager, and likewise as a portfolio manager, you have these views as well, where you can see the different projects that are in your program and or portfolio and their impact on what you had set as a program budget or what you've been given as a program budget, and how are you going to manage that. So as those budgets update, this updates as well. The last thing that I want to show is sort of the end of this for the executive. What does the executive get to see? Oops, sorry, quickly sign back in. Is now I've pulled up a portfolio summary and I have some interesting data right on this screen, and I can go and look at the financials of this information at the portfolio level. Maybe I want to go and drill through to the program level information on that same data. Now I'm looking at it a little more closely. Now I could come in here and see my financials. I could see some status data, some execution information. So we are leveraging the Power Platform here. You saw me log into Power BI. So that powerful tool to give us rich analytics. You can see the click through, the drill down, the analytics against all that financial data that we've been capturing sits right here. You could see where our spend is, how are we progressing, are projects green or not in this particular scenario. They are, that's good news. How things look cumulatively. So we have all of this rich data to service the inquisition or the inquiry of the executive and the kinds of information that they need to make those key decisions. And we're leveraging that. Started with the capture of the budget by the PM, went through the portfolio to make the decisions we needed to make using that financial data. We gave the PM the ability to manage their actuals against their budget, revise their forecasts, and make those in-flight decisions that need to be made in any project. Gave the program manager their view of the data and the decisions that they need to make, and rolled it all up so that the executive and leadership has this ability to drill through, view the data, make decisions, and see things in real time. And that concludes what I wanted to demo, Jim.
Terrific. Terrific. So let's summarize and wrap up what we've covered in the concepts and the demonstration today. Overall, from a summarization perspective, if you look at the graphics on the right there, we are in an adaptive PPM world. And then we do have to have both top-down portfolio management capabilities, including the financial planning pieces, as well as bottom-up work management in order to be successful in managing our diverse portfolios. Financial management is a critical success factor for PPM success, and it really touches almost all aspects of what we do in a project and portfolio management process. Costs need to be planned, estimated, budgeted, and tracked for project success, and that many organizations are still using disconnected spreadsheets and manual processes that are separate from where they're actually managing the projects themselves. Be able to bring those things into a single source of truth, and one plan provides a great platform for all these PPM capabilities to be that single source of truth. It can provide visibility into centralized organization-wide views of project, program, and portfolio financials, as Paul showed you, how the project and program financials came together very nicely. It also enhances all aspects of top-down financial planning and analysis by giving you detailed categorizations in any way that you slice or categorize or characterize the financials within your own organizations. And on top of that, if you're a Microsoft shop and you work in the Microsoft cloud, M365 or Office 365, that is fully developed and integrated in that solution and can be embedded in any of the applications and platforms that you have within that Microsoft Cloud. Paul's showing that to you in Teams today. Also, the ability to integrate with existing financial applications and other data sources to share that data without duplicating entry of data is powerful for a lot of organizations today. So who we are is WICRESOFT. We are a multi-gold certified Microsoft partner with a particular affinity and discipline in project and portfolio management. We were in the past year named their Worldwide Partner of the Year for PPM by Microsoft, and we've dealt with hundreds of customers in helping them successfully deploy PPM solutions like this in those organizations. We are here to support you to whatever degree you'd like to be supported. We have advisory services, solutions, and support, as well as operational support for folks. And we can provide just implementation services for solutions like this, any education and training you might need, ongoing handholding and support that you might want as an organization, and advisory services as you want to transform into some of these more business agility, PMO stand-up, other process enhancements and improvements that you have. We can actually coach, assess, and help you implement on those types of things and develop a roadmap. So we're here to support you to whatever degree you'd like to. We're a fully functional, just full service firm that's available to you. An offer for you registering for this today. If you'd like a roadmap workshop session to kind of review and talk about your current use of solutions and tools, assess the current requirements or a desired future state you might like to get to, determine how to implement or migrate into a new solution and what that implementation roadmap for best adoption success might look like and what that might cost, we're happy to walk through that for you as a complimentary exercise. Also, the adaptive PPM solution that Paul showed you today, we do have a free trial up on Microsoft's App Source. You can go up there and access that and get yourself a trial and get hands-on with the things that you saw here today. Depending on where you're at, you might not be ready for all that, but we do offer you the roadmap workshop. We do offer you the trial, and we're happy to support you with some handholding and WICRESOFT chaperone support during your trial period. But if you just saw the generalized demonstration today and you'd like a more personalized demonstration, one-on-one, that addresses specifically your needs, your requirements, and your landscape, let us know, and we're happy to schedule that with you. We do webinars like this all the time. We have a whole library of on-demand webinars up on the web and upcoming webinars that you can register for at oneplan.ai/webinars. You can reach out to us. We really hope you'll engage with us. Reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai. If you want to reach out to me directly, there's my email in here. You will get a copy of these slides and a link to the recording of this presentation as you go out there. And we really do hope to engage with you and talk to you more about how these concepts can be applied within your own particular organizations.